In the vibrant city of Las Vegas, where dreams come alive under neon lights and ambition echoes through the air, a young woman named Ketora Feazell was building her own legacy. At just 28 years old, she was more than a model. She was a business owner, a daughter, a sister, and a dreamer with her eyes set on success. She had launched her own fashion brand, showcasing style and strength, determined to be more than a statistic in a city known for its dazzling highs and heartbreaking lows. Ketora had a presence that filled every room, vibrant, radiant, unapologetically herself. She exuded confidence both in front of the camera and behind the boutique counter. For those who knew her, Ketora wasn't just another beautiful face. She was a woman with a vision, a hustler in the best sense of the word. She was turning her passion for fashion into something tangible, something lasting. But while her life sparkled on the outside, hidden chapters were unfolding, chapters filled with uncertainty, tension, and the invisible burden of a relationship that would eventually end in tragedy. Like many, Ketora believed in love and second chances. She believed in loyalty. She trusted someone who ultimately proved to be unworthy of that trust. That man was Marvin Simmons, a 31-year-old with whom Ketora had shared an 8-month relationship. By all outward appearances, he was supportive and affectionate. But behind closed doors, the dynamics were different. Friends had noticed signs of emotional turbulence in their relationship, sudden shifts in mood, possessiveness, and jealousy that lingered just beneath the surface. What Ketora may not have fully realized was that Marvin was still involved with the mother of his children. It was a truth hidden in plain sight, one that would set the stage for a devastating confrontation. The emotional entanglements and growing tension would soon culminate in one fatal night that shocked the entire community. On the night of March 7th, 2022, Ketora, accompanied by her sisters, made a simple trip to Marvin's home to return a pair of shoes. A minor errand, an everyday act, but it wasn't the kind of visit that ended with polite goodbyes. Instead, it unraveled into a confrontation that would escalate faster than anyone could have imagined. In the moments that followed, words turned to shouts, and the disagreement turned deadly. Marvin, upset that Ketora had arrived while his other girlfriend and children were present, reacted with rage. As Ketora attempted to leave with her sisters, the unimaginable happened. Gunfire broke the silence of the suburban street, bullets tearing through the night and into Ketora's body. She was struck in the chest and slumped in the car, unresponsive. Her sisters screamed for help, frantically calling 911 as they tried to keep her alive. Emergency responders rushed Ketora to University Medical Center, but the wound was too severe. The vibrant, hopeful life of Ketora Feazell ended that night, leaving behind a family shattered by grief and a community mourning another young life lost to senseless violence. Welcome to Lat True Crime Stories. If this story already has your heart racing, I need you to stay with me. The details of Ketora's murder contain vital lessons that could save your life or the life of someone you love. In this episode, I'll break down the warning signs that preceded this tragedy and provide specific strategies for protecting yourself from similar situations. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications, because the information in this video is too important to miss. If you know someone in a potentially dangerous relationship, sharing this video could be the wake-up call they desperately need. Your engagement helps spread awareness that might prevent another senseless tragedy. This is the story of Ketora, a young woman who deserved protection, not bullets. A woman whose dreams were stolen by someone who once claimed to care. Her story is not just a crime report. It's a painful lesson in recognizing red flags, valuing our safety, and understanding that love should never cost a life. Before her name became a headline in Las Vegas news reports, Ketora Feazell was known as a force of creativity and ambition. Born and raised in California, she eventually made her way to Las Vegas in pursuit of independence, a fresh start, and the kind of life she dreamed about for herself. Friends and family describe her as a woman with big goals, someone who radiated both beauty and boldness. She was stylish, outspoken, and always the first to lift others up with encouragement and motivation. At just 28 years old, Ketora was the founder of Ketora Echelon Clothing, a boutique fashion brand she had cultivated through sheer determination. Whether styling shoots or managing orders, She handled every aspect of the business with care and hustle. Her Instagram feed was filled with confident poses, fashion drops, and inspirational captions, a reflection of her deep desire not only to succeed, but to inspire others, especially young women like herself. Modeling was a natural part of her expression. In front of the camera, she was magnetic, fluent in how to own a look and command attention. But behind the beauty was a brain for business. She wasn't just interested in being the face of her brand. She wanted to build something sustainable, something she could call her own. People often underestimated her, assuming she was just another pretty face in Las Vegas. But Ketora was quick to remind them. She had substance, plans, and a purpose. To her loved ones, Ketora was much more than her business or her image. She was a beloved daughter, sister, and aunt. Those closest to her recall her contagious laugh, her loyalty, and her ability to walk into any room and instantly become its heart. She had a softness she protected fiercely, often giving second chances even when they weren't deserved. Her kindness was part of what made her special, and perhaps part of what made her vulnerable. Las Vegas is a city that often rewards appearance over authenticity, but Ketora brought both. She wasn't afraid to talk about mental health, bad days, or setbacks. In several Instagram posts, she talked openly about starting over, trusting the process, and believing in yourself even when others doubted you. Her transparency made her relatable. Her followers saw her not as an influencer, but as someone trying to grow, both personally and professionally, just like them. Her life wasn't without its struggles. Like many young women navigating relationships, business, and self-image, Ketora experienced her fair share of heartbreaks and hard lessons, but she always bounced back. She knew how to channel her pain into productivity, using her experiences to fuel her creativity. Her inner circle knew she was entering a season of leveling up, focusing on her brand, setting boundaries, and planning for expansion. Sadly, Ketora never got the chance to see the full fruits of her labor. Just as she was gaining traction and confidence in her journey, her life was violently interrupted. The woman who had fought so hard to build herself up was brought down not by failure, but by someone who couldn't handle rejection, control, or accountability. And that's why her story must be told, not just to mourn her loss, but to honor her life and the light she gave to everyone she touched. At the heart of this tragic story lies a complicated and ultimately deadly relationship, one between Ketora Denise Feazell and Marvin Simmons. From the outside, it may have looked like just another Las Vegas romance, full of charm, social media flirtation, and late-night meetups. But beneath the surface, their relationship was riddled with red flags, jealousy, and emotional manipulation. Marvin, 41, was nearly twice Ketora's age, and though age alone doesn't dictate danger in this case, it underscored a troubling imbalance of power and maturity. Those close to Ketora were skeptical of Marvin from the start. He wasn't well known in her entrepreneurial circle and didn't seem particularly supportive of her goals. More importantly, he lived a double life. While pursuing Ketora, he was also in a committed relationship with another woman, one who lived with him and their children. Whether Ketora fully understood the extent of Marvin's entanglements is still unclear, but it's evident that Marvin went to great lengths to keep his worlds from colliding. According to police reports, the relationship between Ketora and Marvin was marked by moments of affection and sudden distance, a cycle common in relationships driven by control. Marvin allegedly used emotional manipulation to maintain dominance, feeding Ketora just enough attention to keep her interested, while withholding honesty and consistency. For someone as ambitious and independent as Ketora, such behavior should have been a deal-breaker. But like many victims of manipulation, she likely saw the version of Marvin he chose to show her, not the man he truly was. Despite the instability, Ketora remained emotionally invested. Friends say she believed Marvin would eventually leave his other partner and commit fully to her. Perhaps she saw potential in him, or perhaps, like many young women, she was drawn to the thrill of fixing what seemed broken. Marvin, however, had no real intention of changing. Instead, when his carefully constructed lies began to unravel, he chose violence over accountability. On the night of the shooting, Ketora reportedly came to Marvin's home, perhaps to confront him, perhaps simply to talk. She was likely unaware that his other girlfriend and children were inside. What was said between them in those final moments remains unknown, but what happened next is chilling. Marvin opened fire, shooting Ketora in the chest in front of his family. It was a senseless and cowardly act, a desperate attempt to silence the consequences of his own lies. What makes this tragedy even more heartbreaking is the context. Ketora didn't break into his home. She wasn't armed or threatening. She was a young woman seeking clarity, honesty, maybe even closure. Instead, she was met with deadly aggression. Marvin didn't just take her life. He took away her future, her potential, and all the dreams she had worked so hard to build. The question everyone asked in the aftermath was, why? Why would a man murder a woman he had once claimed to care about? The answer lies in the intersection of toxic masculinity, fear of exposure, and a deeply ingrained belief that some men have a right to control women's choices, even if it means resorting to violence. Marvin was cornered by his own deceit and lashed out in the most brutal way possible. What Marvin failed to consider was the public outrage that would follow. His attempt to silence Ketora only amplified her story. Media outlets across Nevada quickly picked up the news, and the black community in Las Vegas rallied in mourning and protest. What started as a hidden affair ended as a public indictment of domestic violence, manipulation, and the tragic consequences of unchecked ego. The irony is painful. Marvin killed Ketora in an attempt to maintain control, but in doing so, he lost everything: his freedom, his family, and any shred of sympathy he might have had. Police quickly arrested him, and his mugshot became the face of yet another case where male possessiveness turned deadly. The court of public opinion swiftly rendered its judgment, but the legal system still had to determine his fate. As the community mourned Ketora, a loved one's vowed that her name would not be forgotten. Marvin may have ended her life, but he couldn't erase her legacy. Ketora's story is now part of a larger conversation about toxic relationships, the danger of ignoring red flags, and the importance of protecting women from intimate partner violence, no matter how normal the relationship may seem on the surface. In the immediate aftermath of Ketora Denise Feazell's tragic death, shock and disbelief reverberated through the Las Vegas community. Friends, family, and followers on social media struggled to grasp how a vibrant, ambitious young woman could be gunned down in cold blood, especially by someone she knew and trusted. News of the shooting spread quickly, and so did the heartbreak. Tributes began pouring in across platforms, with many remembering Ketora for her brilliance, compassion, and determination to succeed. As details of the case emerged, outrage intensified. The police affidavit revealed that Marvin Simmons had not only shot Ketora inside his home, but had done so while his long-term girlfriend and their children were present. This revelation painted a chilling portrait of a man whose need for control overpowered any sense of morality or fear of consequence. It wasn't just a moment of rage. It was an execution born out of desperation and cowardice. Law enforcement wasted no time in pursuing justice. Marvin Simmons was swiftly arrested at the scene and charged with open murder. According to police, he initially attempted to claim the shooting was accidental, but evidence contradicted his story. Investigators recovered surveillance footage, gathered witness statements, and collected forensic evidence that directly implicated Marvin in Ketora's death. His attempts to deflect blame fell apart under scrutiny. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department made it clear that they were treating the case with the seriousness it deserved. During a press briefing, officials emphasized the epidemic of domestic-related violence and how cases like Ketora's are tragically common, yet often preventable. Advocacy groups quickly got involved, using the case to highlight the importance of early intervention and protective measures for women in vulnerable relationships. Meanwhile, the judicial process began to unfold. Marvin Simmons was booked into the Clark County Detention Center without bail. At his arraignment, he appeared disheveled and silent, while prosecutors described in painful detail how Ketora had lost her life. The judge deemed him a flight risk and a danger to the community, ensuring he would remain behind bars until trial. The courtroom was filled with members of Ketora's family and supporters, many of whom wept openly during the hearing. As the legal proceedings advanced, prosecutors revealed chilling facts about the case. Not only did Marvin have a documented history of violent outbursts, but there were prior allegations, unreported in the media until now, that suggested he had a pattern of abusive behavior toward women. While none of these past claims had led to convictions, they painted a troubling picture of a man who was no stranger to manipulation and intimidation. The community response was swift and vocal. Vigils were held in Ketora's honor, where candles lit the night sky and voices called for justice, not just for her, but for all women trapped in emotionally abusive relationships. Social media campaigns emerged under hashtags like #JusticeForKetora and #HerStoryMatters. Local organizations also used the moment to advocate for stronger laws protecting women from intimate partner violence, especially in cases where the abuser has access to firearms. The prosecution began preparing for a high-profile trial, determined to ensure that Marvin faced the full weight of the law. Defense attorneys, meanwhile, hinted they might argue diminished responsibility or emotional instability, but those arguments were met with skepticism from the public. This wasn't a crime of passion committed in a heated moment. It was an intentional act carried out in front of witnesses. In the months that followed, Ketora's family continued to speak out. Her mother, in particular, became a powerful voice for change, urging young women to listen to their instincts, recognize red flags, and never tolerate secrecy or manipulation in relationships. The family also launched a scholarship fund in Ketora's name, aiming to support young female entrepreneurs, keeping her spirit alive through opportunity and empowerment. Through all the grief, the community found resilience. The trial loomed on the horizon, promising accountability and, hopefully, a sense of closure. Yet no sentence, no matter how long, could ever undo the damage done or bring Ketora back. What remained was the commitment to tell her story, to remember her not as a victim, but as a woman full of potential who was taken too soon by a man who couldn't stand to lose control. The tragic death of Ketora Denise Feazell sent shockwaves throughout Las Vegas and beyond, igniting difficult conversations around relationship violence, manipulation, and control. Her story resonated deeply with countless women who saw reflections of their own experiences, situations where they overlooked red flags, remained in secretive dynamics, or gave second chances to men who didn't deserve them. Ketora's murder became a rallying cry, reminding everyone that silence and secrecy in relationships can come at a devastating cost. Local organizations focused on domestic violence were among the first to respond. Women's shelters, legal aid centers, and crisis hotlines reported an uptick in calls in the weeks following Ketora's death. Survivors were coming forward, sharing their stories, seeking help, and looking for ways to escape toxic situations. For many, Ketora's story served as both a warning and a wake-up call. They recognized how easily they could have become victims themselves. In the days that followed, vigils turned into town hall discussions, and town halls evolved into reform campaigns. Advocacy groups called for better legislation to prevent such tragedies, including stricter background checks for firearm possession, mandatory domestic violence training for law enforcement, and harsher penalties for repeated emotional and physical abusers. Ketora's death was no longer just a headline. It was a catalyst for change. Many people also began to question the legal and social systems that allowed Marvin Simmons to remain under the radar despite his concerning behavior. If there had been previous signs of abuse or manipulation, why weren't there interventions? How many other men like him were walking free, hiding behind a charming exterior while engaging in controlling behavior behind closed doors? These questions echoed across social platforms and in public forums, demanding systemic change. Educational institutions and community leaders also took action. Schools began revisiting their relationship education curriculum to include more detailed discussions about emotional abuse, coercive control, and warning signs in intimate relationships. Young women and men were encouraged to speak up, set boundaries, and report concerns without fear of judgment. Ketora's story became a part of these lessons, a real-life example of how seemingly subtle red flags can escalate into irreversible tragedy. Faith-based organizations, often silent on the topic of domestic abuse, were also drawn into the conversation. Pastors and spiritual leaders began addressing these issues more openly in sermons and community meetings. Some churches even hosted workshops and partnered with local counselors to support members experiencing relationship difficulties. It was a significant cultural shift, one that Ketora's death helped bring about. Social media played a vital role in amplifying the message. Influencers, survivors, and mental health professionals used their platforms to dissect the patterns of behavior seen in Ketora's case: secrecy, jealousy, isolation, and emotional manipulation. These educational posts were widely shared, sparking debates and increasing awareness. Importantly, they provided tools for others to recognize warning signs in their own relationships or in those around them. Lawmakers in Nevada were pressured to review existing statutes related to domestic violence and gun ownership. Ketora's case highlighted a gap in preventive mechanisms: how easily someone with a dangerous history could still have access to a weapon, even within the privacy of their own home. Legislative proposals emerged advocating for stronger protective orders and mandatory removal of firearms in domestic violence investigations. At the grassroots level, Ketora's friends and family transformed their grief into advocacy. They launched an awareness campaign under her name, hosting webinars, distributing flyers, and engaging with schools and youth groups. Their mission was simple yet profound: educate, empower, and equip others with the knowledge Ketora never had, or never had the chance to use. Their goal was to ensure no other young woman suffered a similar fate because she didn't know where to turn or how dangerous someone truly was. Ultimately, Ketora Denise Feazell's story became more than a crime tale. It became a movement. Her memory lives on not only through the justice her family seeks, but through the lives saved by the awareness her tragedy inspired. In a world where intimate partner violence continues to take lives in silence, her story forces us to break that silence and protect those still living in fear. The story of Ketora Denise Feazell is not just about a life stolen. It's about the haunting reality of what can happen when love turns dangerous and warning signs are ignored. As the final chapters of her life were revealed to the public, one thing became painfully clear: this wasn't an isolated incident. Ketora's fate mirrors the stories of countless women who suffer in silence, caught in complicated and emotionally abusive relationships that can ultimately become fatal. Her story reminds us that emotional abuse often lays the groundwork for physical violence. It often starts subtly, with control, with secrets, with possessiveness masked as affection. By the time the danger becomes obvious, it may already be too late. Ketora's tragic end forces us to look beyond physical bruises and examine the psychological patterns that so often precede physical harm. Her case urges us to take even the smallest red flag seriously and intervene early. It also challenges us to reconsider the conversations we have around love and relationships. Too often, toxic behaviors are normalized or romanticized. Jealousy is mistaken for passion, isolation is mistaken for devotion, and secrecy is mistaken for privacy. Ketora's story reminds us that genuine love should never require silence, secrecy, or fear. Real love is safe, respectful, and transparent. There's also a powerful call to action for bystanders, friends, family, co-workers, and even neighbors. Many times, someone close to the victim sees the signs, but doesn't know what to say or how to help. Ketora's case is a sobering reminder that saying something, offering help, or making a report can potentially save a life. The importance of community vigilance cannot be overstated. Everyone plays a role in prevention. For men, Ketora's story is a difficult yet necessary wake-up call. It's an opportunity to reflect on how control, entitlement, and toxic masculinity manifest in relationships. It's a time to check in with their own behavior and that of their peers. Are they promoting respect, boundaries, and accountability? Or are they excusing violence in silence? Real change begins when men take responsibility for the culture they help shape. Ketora's legacy should not be that of a victim alone. She was a vibrant woman, a hard-working entrepreneur, a daughter, a friend, and a role model. Her ambition and warmth inspired others, and it's that version of her life that deserves to be remembered and honored. We must speak her name not only in grief but in purpose, as a symbol of resilience, strength, and awareness. This case also reinforces the need for continued investment in domestic violence education and prevention. Schools, workplaces, and faith communities must incorporate more comprehensive training on healthy relationships, recognizing abuse, and accessing resources. Survivors need safe, judgment-free spaces where they can share their truths and receive support without fear of shame or retaliation. As we close this chapter, we must ask ourselves, what more could have been done to save Ketora? How can we protect others like her? These questions are difficult, but they are essential. We owe it to her, and to every woman whose voice has been silenced by violence, to keep asking, to keep learning, and to keep fighting for a world where these stories no longer happen. In her memory, let's commit to doing better by listening more closely, loving more gently, and standing up more firmly against abuse in all its forms. Ketora's life was filled with promise, light, and ambition. While her story ended too soon, it doesn't have to end in vain. Through awareness, education, and action, we can turn this tragedy into a movement that saves lives and honors her legacy. Thank you for watching. If you or someone you know is in a potentially dangerous relationship, please don't wait. Reach out to a local domestic violence hotline, a trusted friend, or a support organization. You are not alone. And to Ketora, your light continues to shine in the truth we share and the change we make in your name. If this story impacted you, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs this information. Your comment could help others recognize dangerous patterns in their own relationships. Together, we can prevent more tragedies like Ketora's by spreading awareness and supporting those at risk. Remember, recognizing the warning signs saves lives.